Yeah, so here we are. I think we're down the road. Grab a seat. We'll let you do it. Yeah. They're not just two. I might mention
Yeah. All right, I'll
wherever you like.
that.
Yeah, wherever you like. Still plenty of seats at the front, just like in school. Come on out. Alexandra, do we have lots of stragglers? Tim, you're ready to roll at like 7:30. We'll see how this goes. We'll probably start right around that, maybe 5 minutes after. You good? Okay. Let's get going. Can I, if I don't point this towards my mouth, does this work? Can you guys hear me okay? Beautiful, excellent. All right, well thank you so much everyone for coming out to Drinks and Demos for the New York Legal Tech Meetup. It's wonderful to be back with you. Sincere apologies to the regulars for having been off for a few months, but it's been a significantly busy time in my day job. Quick show of hands, how many of you have been with us before at one of the meetups? All right, and how many new people? Excellent, great mix. Perfect. So for the people who are new, just a quick word about this community, and we do try to ensure that it's a bit of a community. The whole concept of this group is to help bring people together from all the different kind of component pieces of the landscape of legal technology and innovation and try to get it more well connected in New York to support this burgeoning ecosystem that we have here. I'm very bullish on the idea that this should be, ground zero for legal technology around the world, that this should be the core central hub, and I think we're well on our way to establishing that, but we can really bolster that aim by supporting one another, learning from one another, shining a spotlight on people doing incredible work, having important conversations, and so that's essentially what we do here. It's not a commercial enterprise. We kind of run it with like a nonprofit mindset. If you want to get involved, we'd love to have you. And if you have feedback for us of what we can do differently or better, please, by all means, let us know. Because it's not commercial, these sorts of things would not happen but for some incredible support from sponsors. So right out of the gate, please join me in thanking Winston and Strawn for having us here tonight and the wonderful facility. And KP, can I have you come up and say a few words? This is KP. He is one of the partners here and kind of our resident sponsor. And Aubrey in the back, thanks for all your help getting this set up. Quick word from our sponsor.
I will be really brief so we can get to the demos and everyone is here for that. First off, Aubrey, great job getting all of this set up and making this a priority. So it's really nice to see this. Let me start by saying that. A vibrant, well-attended event because the legal community, lawyers, We are thirsting for change. Generally, this industry is slow to move, but we've hit the tipping point, and we need you. We need innovation. We need change. We can't keep working the same way that we are today. And that's where you guys come in. So, this is an important part of that process, the informal meeting, informal exchange of ideas. And we look forward to the formal exchange of ideas, meaning, you contacting us here at Winston and all the other people from law firms here, and telling us what it is you have to offer, because we are interested to hear about it. We're ready, and not just the IT departments of law firms, but lawyers are ready. So look forward to some good demos. Look forward to meeting all of you, if not today, in the near future.
Thanks for that. While we do this, so picking up on something we were just talking about, it is really important to us that this is not just a series of events. We're trying to build some genuine community, and it's really important if we're going to do that people in the room know each other and know the cool things other people are working on or the needs that they have. And so as a way to facilitate in some small way that piece of the puzzle, we always kick off our events with something called community intros. And it's where we have 4 or 5 people from the community come up and say just a quick 30 seconds on hello, who they are, why they're passionate about legal technology. Maybe they have an event they want to announce, or they're looking for a job, or they're hiring for a job, or whatever the case may be. So for tonight's community intros, can I please have Ben, Douglas, Rich, and Ekta come up, please? And to fill the gap, we can clap for them too. Who wants to kick us? Who's the brave soul? You're Douglas. You're an old pro. Why don't you kick us off?
Thanks, Christian. I appreciate the opportunity. Hi, everybody. Thanks for your attention. My name is Douglas Capizalo, and I'm here because I'm keen to play the role of customer success manager at your company. I know what continuous product value feels like. I've been a technology trainer at Sherman and Sterling for 7 years, for Christ's sake. I'm Ivy League educated, so I communicate with customers in their language. For example, the benefits manager asked me to teach tips in Excel. So I asked, how does your staff deal with changes in 401k deductions? Ugly spreadsheets. Well, I taught the class how to automate that from a single data feed, and everyone was happy. I think that we need advocates for people, not for technology. People drive continuous product value. Technology meets expectations only when expectations are built into technology. So if I'm speaking your language, come say hello after the demos. Thanks for listening.
Hop on up.
Hey everybody, I'm Ben Settle. I'm CEO at a new startup called Ipsum Analytics. We are using machine learning to help litigators better understand their cases and to help them predict what's likely to happen going forward in their cases. I myself was a litigator at a firm for about 3 years, and so the idea of more informed, intelligent decision making with a much broader context of looking at past outcomes and doing a deep analysis of those to figure out what that means for your case was something very appealing to me and sort of interesting opportunity. We are launching a pilot of our tool in October, so if that's something you might be interested in using, please connect with me and let me know. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Ekta, Director of Customer Relations at PacerPro. I'm also NYU Law Class of 2012. The law school will be hosting an event called The Impact of Innovation on October 15th. We'll be hearing from people in this room, including some others, including the Chief Product Officer at Kira, the co-founders of Lex Machina, of Paladin, head innovation officers at Latham and Nixon Peabody. And we'll also be hearing questions led by NYU Law students who also hold PhDs in computer science and engineering. The event is actually sold out, but we're holding 10 seats for attendees of the meetup tonight. So if you're interested, just come find me after.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rich Rifkin. I joined Rain in Court a few months ago, and so I get to work with this guy. Thank you for your sympathies. I sit right next to Christian, so it's incredible to see the energy and the dynamism the guy brings to his job and the excitement that we see in the marketplace for what we do. I've been in this market for a long, long time, 20 plus years, and I am just thrilled with the existence of this group. I'm proud to be a part of it, and I look forward to meeting you and working with you. If you work in a law firm, my responsibilities are mainly to work with the law firm community to introduce our technology and help you address the deployment and management and facilitation of utilizing state-of-the-art cloud-based tools that will help your firm be more innovative and address the needs of your clients. So I look forward to meeting you, and I appreciate the opportunity to say hello to you. Thanks.
And we always put out a call for community intros a week or two before the event. Stay tuned if you want to do it at another one. All right, we've got 5 fantastic demos tonight, so I'm just going to keep the prefatory remarks very, very brief. Just a couple of quick announcements. One, I'm quite excited about, notwithstanding our lack of programming in the last couple of months, we actually just, I think yesterday, tipped the 1,500 member mark of the meetup. So, thank you all so much for being here, and if any of you signed up duplicate accounts, I appreciate it. Second, I've started to get a little bit busier than I used to be, so you may see some names you haven't seen before pop up. We've got a wonderful steering committee that will become even more integrated into the meetup. And I have a new part-time employee from Columbia Law School, Emily. Give a little wave at the back of the room. Hey, she may be helping with some of the organization, so if you see emails from an Emily, it's not fake. She's at the back. A couple of things about other initiatives. You know, we kind of got the ball rolling, but we still got a lot of work to do. But one of the things we wanted to do to help support all the cool innovation work happening here in New York is we put together a kind of a B1 prototype of a New York legal tech map. You can find that on the website. Got it up and running pretty quickly. We've got plenty of companies in the queue that haven't yet made it on yet because the people running it are working at big law firms. But hopefully it can be really cool. So if you know of companies that need to be on it, or your company needs to be on it, there's an input form on the website. See that, tell us how we can make it better, and we'll do. And it should be really cool, hopefully. And then finally, the last remark. We've been terrible at social media in the past when I was doing it. Thankfully, it's getting slightly better now that Frankie's helping with it. Thanks, Frankie. But we would love your help, just establishing a little bit more of a market presence in the community here to make sure people who don't yet know about the meetup can find out about it. In the bottom left-hand side of that slide, you can see both our handle on Twitter and a couple other social mediums, and then the hashtag we tend to run, which is just hashtag nylegaltech. So if you guys are here tonight, take a few pictures, make a few tweets, we'd really appreciate it. And without further ado, I'm going to call up the first company. We're going to go in order with the exception of Simply Agree, because we're going to put them at the back for technical reasons. And we're just going to go one down the other. It's going to be about 8-minute demos, and you guys are going to have 3 or 4 minutes for questions at the end. So be thinking about what you want to ask the presenters. I'm going to kick things off with ThoughtRiver and some fantastic new technology, I understand. World premiere technology here at the meetup tonight. So please welcome Tim from ThoughtRiver.
Don't start the clock. So,
I think the spoon, kind of shot a spoon drink up there.
okay, everyone see my screen? So my name is Tim Pullen. I'm CEO and founder of ThoughtRiver. I'm going to dive straight into my demo for reasons that become obvious. So this afternoon, my colleague Ashley sent me a contract by email. This is a contract that we are doing with a supplier, and she's asking me to get it reviewed. I'm just going to this contract. Okay. Wow, this is some mic. Right, okay. Yeah, so the reason why we automate first-pass reviews is because research shows that lawyers spend up to 40% of their time just trying to orientate themselves when a contract hits the desk. And so what we've created is a software equivalent of a paralegal given a checklist and a contract and a job to kind of do that read-through before you get the contract. And so what we're doing is we're saving a lot of time. So here on the screen here, you can see this is our existing tech, not the new bit we're going to show you in a second. But what we're doing here is each one of these contracts has come through the system. We've done an interpretation job on that contract. We have then applied risk judgments just like a paralegal would. And then we've rolled it all up into a summary of that contract, which you can use to orientate yourself, like what priority you're going to give to a job, and indeed when you get into the job, what you do with it. Now, I think I just heard my email. So the email I sent through just a second ago, this is a live demo, by the way. I like doing risks, but what our system does is it will take the email. We've got a workflow tool. It will strip out the contract, and it will put it through the system. And in a moment, once it's got round to it, it will start showing it on this screen. But just before we get to that, one thing just more about us. We started in Singapore, but we're now really based in the UK. We've got most of our R&D in Cambridge and London. But we've just set up in the US, actually not just in the US, but in New York. And we're so happy to be here because it's a great community and obviously a fantastic city. So as Christian said, not only are we kind of launching our office this week, but also we're launching this new product, which is a word integration. So we're taking our product here, which I think this contract should be here by now. Yeah, you can see the contract has hit the system, the workflow's done its job, and now the system's going through the process of doing the interpretation of the contract. I won't sort of drill into the technology for good reasons the customer success guy just said, but basically we're a Q&A system. We ask lots of questions which have been authored by lawyers, and then we use the technology to actually answer those questions. And often with one single contract, we're asking thousands of questions in order to simulate, what that real paralegal would do. So just because I've only got around about 4 minutes left, I'm going to shoot on and just do one I did before, right? So this is the same contract, and you see that that's come through the system. The system's done its interpretation. Again, this is existing technology which our clients use. By the way, we've got clients all over the world. This is not just kind of jurisdictional specific. We have clients as far east as Christchurch and as New Zealand and far west as Seattle. So it's a kind of global platform. Now I'm going to dive through this bit, which is our existing technology. I'm going to show you the new bit. So the thing is that lawyers actually want to be in their familiar environment, and their familiar environment is Microsoft Office Word. Over 90% of lawyers love Microsoft Office Word. I'm a lawyer by trade, and I love it as well. So what the new technology does is enables our risk review to appear in Microsoft Word environment. So I'm going to do what most lawyers do when they see a contract, which is switch on track changes. The best function in the world, and then I'm going to summon in the new, and you are the first crowd to see this. Woo! This is a live demo. It's just loading up. It's not going to let me down. From Monday, all our clients, the guys in Christchurch, New Zealand, the guys in Seattle will be using this. So here you see the risk review and the assessment that you just saw in the web app, but brought into the Word environment. You can see that it's detected the parties, which is nice, but it's a pretty standard task. But not only is it detected the parties, but what our system is doing is it's reading the contract the right way around. It understands how to read the contract from your perspective as opposed to someone else's perspective, which is really important if you're going to do any type of risk review. So it's answer those questions from the right perspective. And what our assistant's done, you've only been in the document 30 seconds, and the assistant is already telling you kind of some gotchas in this document. So here we've got the first one, which is the system, we're buying goods, and the system's figured out something that is slightly dodgy in this contract because the supplier has the right just to terminate on 5 days' notice, right? If I'm a lawyer and acting for the buyer, I probably don't like that. But the system's already spotted it, and not only has it spotted it, it's told me why, and it's also given me content that I can then just insert straight into the document as a comment, and I can, because it's in the document, I can actually edit it as well. So I'm speeding up this process of getting from contract arriving to contract going out the door. Not only am I looking at stuff that is in the document, but the assistant is also helping me understand what's not in the document, which is often the task. Now, for me, if I'm reviewing this contract, I probably, after a while, will spot there is no entire agreement clause. But actually, this system's made that very easy for me. It's spotted it automatically. It's told me why it's important. But you know what? Not only has it done that, but it's helped me issue. And I'll show you why. Because obviously, if there's a missing clause, normally what I would have to do is have to go through my contract library and I have to look for examples that are relevant, and that's slowing me down. But here, what the system has done, the assistant, it knows your templates, and it automatically finds within your templates relevant drafting for the issue it's just raised for you. So here, it's looked for a template, it's found some entire agreement drafting, and what it's now going to do is it's going to help me just insert it in the document. So we only got about how many minutes left? 1 minute. Okay, so we haven't got time to go into too much detail. But I think the summary is that what we've taken is technology, very complex, world-leading technology, but we've made it simple and we've brought it into the desktop to where people are. So instead of, I've talked about AI, but actually AI is not the thing. It's about utility. It's about speeding up, accelerating the tasks lawyers have and the time they spend, and just removing the noise from their lives. So that's my pitch.
Since we only have one working microphone, we're going to ask questions by projecting, and then Tim is going to repeat the questions into the microphone. Who has a question for ThoughtRiver?
Please.
I have a question, Tim. I'm wondering if that 10.3 is reading the 10.2 above.
It's not in this case.
Question.
Oh, sorry. So I project the question. He's asking whether the numbering has automatically kind of read it. It would have done if it was automatic numbering, but I can tell you in this document, this is not automatic numbering, so that's just luck. But actually, if it was automatic numbering, it would, because it would obviously insert it in the right place. Please.
What type of contracts and provisions does this cover?
The system has been designed to cover any type of contract. Obviously, there's a configuration where every time we come into a new contract domain, there's questions that have to be designed, and obviously the system has to be trained to be able to conquer that domain. We do it sometimes, our clients do it, we give them all the tools they need to be able to extend it into their own domain. So you get an entire studio, if you like, to be able to do that yourself. But the actual framework, the architecture, the knowledge architecture underneath the platform, what we call Lexible, has been designed to deal with any kind of contract.
There's one at the back.
Oh, sorry, please.
So I was impressed with the part where we pull language from your precedent. How does it gather up the relevant precedent? Is there like manual work?
No, that's the thing. It's no work at all. You literally. So the question, sorry, is do you have to manually kind of be like a librarian and sort your clauses into different issues? And the answer is no. Because our system has built-in intelligent knowledge, not only can it use that knowledge when it's reviewing the contracts, but it can also use the knowledge when it's kind of breaking apart your template into drafting suggestions. So the only effort you have to put your templates into the system is literally just to put them into the system. The system will do the rest and will automatically serve up suggestions which are relevant to the issue in hand. Please. White shirt. Yeah.
So you're saying that all you have to do, if I have a very large animal, you're telling me that all I have to do is load all of the very large animals from my firm onto your system, and it's going to tell me where I
if you've got the questions in there that you want answered, yes. Sorry, the question was, I'm really bad at this. The question was, if he loaded all the M&A agreements from his share purchase agreements into our system, would our system review those contracts? And absolutely it would. The only thing I was saying to him was, it may be that you want to ask specific questions which some of them are in our system today, and some of them you need to add. So you might need to add the questions to the system in order to get the complete review you want. But yes, absolutely, that's what it would do. Yeah, of course.
I think that's a very simple example that you gave, that you have a template and you know what you want the change to be. And so you know what your playbook is, you know what the difference is. But I think that if you've got an example where you don't know what the data changes are going to be, you got to train the data to know what the changes are.
We haven't created a robot lawyer here. So there will be complex things that only you can handle, and that's absolutely fine. But what this system is doing is dealing with the common issues which arise in contracts, is where you waste the 40% of your time that you could actually be spending on the more valuable tasks. So, and it's not directing at you personally, but I know this as being a lawyer. You spend so much time, actually almost embarrassing amount of time, dealing with the kind of run-of-the-mill issues. And actually, what you really should be doing is focusing on the more complex drafting tasks. In M&A deals, there'll be very custom clauses which have to be hand-cranked. But what our system is doing, it can deal with complex contracts. I mean, we've purposely this is a fairly simple services agreement because it's a demo, and a more complex agreement will take around about 10 minutes to go through the system, but it will definitely deal with it.
Well, we have time for one last question.
Please, sorry, I know you asked you had your hand up earlier.
I was just curious because it looks like it is CPU intensive. Is this hosted at your place or is it run on the local computer? And I guess he was alluding to that you might have more set of documents to train it, or is it work out of the box?
So,
when does it come out?
Okay, there's lots of questions. So is it CPU intensive? Do you have to train it? So it is very, very CPU intensive. You've got maybe 100,000 models working every time you put a contract in. That's a lot. But we provide a hosted solution, and we provide that to many law firms and big corporations. So, but we also, just a plug here, we will be making it available via Rain in Court as well. So there you go. So you do have options, and actually, the CPUs are intensive, but it's not. The cost is nothing compared to the value that it can deliver. As for the training, yes, if you're doing it for a certain task, you probably will want to add some training. But out of the box, you get thousands of questions and the associated training. So, what we're giving you day one is something which is valuable day one, and which actually gives you a starting point, which is kind of around about 85% of the way towards where you want to be.
Thanks so much, Tim. Next up, we have our local friends from the Community Lawyer, and Scott from Community Lawyer, and I'll vamp for a second while you plug in. Yeah, excellent.
I'm not able to use this mic because I need 2 hands.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, do it. Jolie, he needs 2 hands, so he's going to use the mic. Don't worry if the recording audio stream doesn't come through.
Okay, so my name is Scott Kelly. I'm one of the co-founders of Community Lawyer. As Christian said, we're a Brooklyn-based legal tech company. We're about 3 years old. We're partnered with about 50 bar associations across the country, so we're more known in kind of the solo and small firm attorney world. That's sort of who we are. What do we do? So we actually offer 2 products, one of which I'm here to talk about today. The first one is we offer a referral platform that local networks of attorneys use to set up online marketplaces and connect with their community. This year, we're going to be referring about 250,000 people through our platform. So to put that in perspective, I think LegalZoom in its whole sort of 14-year history has connected about 500 people with lawyers, so not bad, or 500,000 people with lawyers, so not bad, not 500, there we go, 500,000, so we're halfway there. And what I'm here to talk about today is also the connected piece to that, which is the app builder. Our app builder is a no-code solution that helps you automate legal intake, processes and documents. You've probably seen things like this before. For those of you familiar with like other kind of more generic web tools, we're kind of like Typeform plus WebMerge plus GitHub. That might not mean anything, that's okay, that's what the demo's for, so don't worry about that. And if you're really nerdy, you know what DocAssemble is. It is the leading open source expert system for lawyers. It was built by a single programmer in Philadelphia, but now has a thriving sort of community around it, and we're actually built on top of that. So we're a no-code solution that helps you actually compile apps that run on DocAssemble and can be run sort of on-premise or in the cloud with us. Okay, so that's what we do, but how do we help you? We help you build delightful client intake experiences. We help you automate legal processes and documents. And if you want, we help you build your own app store for law, whether that's client-facing, it faces other lawyers, and they can subscribe to your apps, or it's something that's facing members of the public. So let's get to the demo. There we go. See my screen? There we go. Okay, so this is our tool that we have for building apps. If you're, like I said, if you're familiar with Typeform or other no-code solutions, this should look pretty familiar to you. You can go ahead and actually build out documents and automate them. So these are a series of questions that you gather inputs. You can, have special clauses that fill in information, and then at the end of the document, you can. At the end of the app, you can assemble a document. So let's go over to the document view. Our tool actually allows you to assemble PDFs if you want to. You can also create documents in the app itself. So this is like sort of like a Word editor that you can use. And you can also upload Word documents, which will allow you to use your own styling, your own templates, and actually interpolate variables directly into that. So it's a pretty powerful tool. You can send emails, you can do webhooks, all of that, and you can also sync with outside databases. But again, that doesn't mean a lot. Let's actually put this in action. So I can run this app, give it a second to build, because I just built this out. So we'll let it build. Hold on. Get a little bit of a slow internet connection. It's always a moment of truth. Okay, so here's the Nylegaltech branded safe agreement generator. The company is Community Lawyer, and our investors are everyone in the room. Okay, so get ready to take out your checkbooks later. Everyone in the room, and you can add in whatever your investment is going to be. It's going to be a huge investment of almost $200. If you want to add a valuation cap, you can do that as well. And then you can press continue and actually assemble the document. Now, this is a super, super simple example of what you can do. I'm going to actually open up the document and show you that it actually works, so let's do that. But you can build this out to be as complicated as you need it to be, and we have some apps that are built on Community Lawyer that are automating entire practice areas like immigration law, and I can talk with you separately if you have particular use cases in mind. So I'm just going to show you how easy it is to actually build in Community Lawyer. So we're going to go ahead and modify this and actually add in a signature. So I'm going to add a signature block. I'm going to rearrange that because I want it to come before the end screen. I'm going to add a option up here where the end user can decide if they want to sign online. So do you want to sign online? And then I can dynamically present this next block. Please have a representative we go. And you can style it however you want. Please have a representative of the company sign below. We'll do signature right here. We had that question up here where it says, do you want to sign online? So we're only going to display this block if you said sign online is true. And then let's go to the document itself and add in a signature all the way down here. Again, this is a pretty simple demo, but our time is limited, so there we go, looking it up, signature right there. And if you want, let's throw in a certificate of incorporation as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this PDF. It's a certificate of incorporation. I'm going to add in a couple text fields here. This is the PDF editor side of things, and you can actually drop in your variables right here. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but you get the idea. And I'm going to attach that on the final box. So now we're assembling two documents, and we're also presenting a signature field as well. Great, so let's run this app. And this is being run in test mode, so it takes a little time to build, but when you actually activate the app and it's live, it's going to run a lot faster. So I'm just going to go through and very quickly, community lawyer, I apologize for how slow I am at writing. I'm going to do investment. We're going to invest a little bit more this time. We're not going to do evaluation cap. I'm going to say no, I don't want to sign online, just to show you what that looks like and how it skips the signature field. So I'm going to go back. And now I'm going to say yes, in fact, I do want to sign online. And then we go ahead and do that and hit continue. And hopefully that signature is filled in where we want it to be. So let's open up the simple agreement for future equity first. Give it a second to open. Okay, and we go down here, and sure enough, there's a signature. And yeah, did you see it? It was very fast. There you go. And we've also got the, I almost forgot, our certificate of incorporation, which has also been filled out. And we did that in a matter of seconds. The great thing about this is I've showed you sort of the Zazier end user app. Oh, I have 0 minutes, sorry. Okay. I've showed you the Zazier kind of like end user app where you would have either a lawyer fill it out or someone else, but you could actually just update a database, Postgres database, Google Sheets, whatever you want, sync it to your apps, and the documents will be assembled automatically in the background, fully automated. There you go.
Awesome. All right. Take a round of applause for Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Some questions for community lawyer.
Hi, it can be used in Spanish language contracts or only English?
Yeah, I mean, if you can write it in Spanish, then it can be used in Spanish, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
In fact, we have a lot of global users, and there are many Spanish contracts that are being automated with it.
How is it different from a mail merge? I mean, basically like a mail merge with, DocuSign. I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that. But just that's my question.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Can you repeat the question?
Oh, yeah, repeating the question, we're all about this. So how is it different than a basic mail merge? I think, one, the user experience is a lot better than using mail merge, which is, is something. You actually need to get people to use it. But I think more than that, it's not shown in this demo. We didn't have the time, but you can go on to Community Lawyer, download, lots of different apps that have been published to Community Lawyer, and see how they've been built. And they have incredibly complex logic that can be built in that really reflects the complexity of the law. So I think a lot of mail merge systems, they're just simple kind of find and replace. With these apps, you're really building a web app that it can have repeated loops, it can have complex calculations, it can sync from outside databases and have user input, so there's a lot more to it. And happy to talk more about that later.
You mentioned the library of apps that's available. Like, what tends to be the core kind of user base, and have you guys seen uptake in kind of unexpected ways or areas? I mean, I've heard rumors of kind of where you guys are kind of going and headed and who wants you to go in different directions. Tell us a little bit about your user community.
Yeah, so the question was, tell us a little bit about your user community. So we basically have two sets of users, one we expected and one we didn't. The ones we expected were solo and small firm attorneys and medium-sized firms that are building apps that those solo and small firm attorneys then subscribe to. Our software actually makes it really easy to not only build apps, but set them up so that they can be customized and subscribed to by other attorneys or by other company maybe that you make the apps available to. But we've also been surprised. There's been a few larger law firms that have contacted us about using sort of a white label version of our platform, and so we have white labeled it for one customer, and we're in the process of doing it for another, and so that they can use it fully kind of branded to them. So that's sort of why I'm here.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I probably just missed it. Does this get deployed typically on the lawyer's website, or how's it typically deployed, and how's it been marketed?
Yeah, so it can be deployed in a number of different ways. It can be deployed sort of silently in the background of a database, so you can literally just like fill in a row in a spreadsheet, and it'll send your document to wherever you want because we're doing API requests to that spreadsheet. It could also be something that's embedded directly on your website. You can also, with Community Lawyer, it's in the name, you can create communities, whether private or public, where you can actually publish the apps you build. So here's one I just built. There's no apps in it, but it's an app store. It has all the kind of searches you can do. And if I'd had more time in the demo, I would have published the app to this community. So you can create private communities for your clients where they can access a suite of apps that are specific to them.
One more last question.
Oh, I got a mic. So I'm a community lawyer from Australia. I work with self-represented litigants. Do you see any opportunities for your product to help lay people understand the law better or deal with legal documents better?
Yeah, absolutely. So we actually are working with a couple large court systems here in the United States, which are using Community Lawyer to provide self-help tools to the public. So fully automated divorce, hooray, and all sorts of other self-help tools. So yeah, it ranges the gamut from apps built completely for members of the public to apps that are meant to sit silently in the background of a spreadsheet. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. All right, thanks so much, Scott. Yeah, that's perfect. All right, and please welcome Jeremiah from Evercron.
Yeah.
Oh, wait.
Yeah,
you got it.
Good audio on your demo, use the handheld.
Big handheld.
Your choice.
Lost it.
We probably got like 3 people listening on YouTube.
Yeah, I'm good with this.
Yeah, but this is going to be the recording that'll work forever.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I'm actually from Los Angeles, but Christian was kind enough to invite me over here. Very impressed with this group. It's very exciting to have so much engagement, especially with lawyers. We need to replicate Christian in Los Angeles and do this there as well. Okay, so I'm Jeremiah Kellman. I'm one of the co-founders of Evercron. Just giving you a bit about us. I haven't done an 8-minute demo in a long time, so bear with me. I'm going to kind of wing it. But a bit about me and my co-founder Ofer. We were both lawyers at Irell and Manella in Los Angeles, and before that, we started at USC Law School. And as litigators, I was a litigator for 7 years. Kind of got to see junior to senior what we were dealing with day to day, and kind of looked around and, having seen what other industries had in terms of specific tools to help them do their jobs day to day, I started to get pretty surprised at what we were dealing with and thought, why not start a startup software company? So the problem we're dealing with is a bit different than I think the most common software out there, which is like e-discovery software. I think everybody realizes that's a huge problem that everyone's had to deal with, and technology companies have jumped in and solved, which was how do you go through a mountain of documents and get through it and find needles. But as lawyers, if you're a litigator, you realize that this kind of has nothing to do with a large part of your job.
when you're actually getting ready for a hearing or a deposition or something like that. Or just even in the discovery process, doing what's called fact development, right? Understanding your key documents and putting them together into a story so that when you show up at the deposition, you ask the right questions, and then you don't show up a week before trial wondering why you didn't ask people the right questions. So lawyers have to understand a lot of aspects of documents, have to connect them together. The way this is done today is kind of like this. It's sort of a bunch of different fragmented systems that are continuously being updated. There are some legacy tools you might be familiar with, like Case Map, Case Notebook. But the truth is, actually, that's not really what people are using. We actually did a survey recently. I'm not sure how much law firms are aware of this. And we asked them, how many of you guys create key document chronologies? And we're kind of surprised, not surprised, that 90% so far, and I got to expand this because 90% of the associates and partners that we talk to say, yes, I create hot doc chronologies. I create key document chronologies. And of those, something like 90% say they do it in Word and Excel. So this important task is being done in a general purpose tool that wasn't really built for litigators. And so the problem is all these different systems are being continuously updated, not really talking to each other. There are different people in different systems. But then it gets worse. You're preparing for a depo, pulling from all these different systems, and you multiply that by more and more witnesses. And if you're a litigator or a paralegal, you're kind of like this. I think if you're a lawyer, you can relate. So the idea of
Please join me in welcoming Ryan from Xero.
Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Ryan Stedman. I'm one of the early hires at Xero. We're based out in Los Gatos. We're a US headquartered company, but in fact we're actually an American Armenian company. We have a team of about 40 exceptionally gifted mobile developers, and our team consists primarily of software engineers and computer scientists. Our founding story is really rather interesting. One of our co-founders was one of the guys that developed code for cancer image detection recognition. And as a result of addressing some of the security and data security needs related to client and patient data staying on the device, he and two bandits of other good friends of his got together and built something that helps us all deal with the endemic email challenges that we have. So we solve two things. The first thing that we solve is email management for very busy professionals, knowledge workers, lawyers. And how we solve that is we help lawyers typically file emails directly into document management systems from their mobile device. Hasn't quite been done as elegantly before. The second thing we do pretty well is help lawyers capture time on their mobile devices when interacting with client-related email. Okay, so that whole story of the death of the billable hour, or who wants to reconstruct time entries, we're slowly helping the industry get to that nirvana, so to speak. So what Xero is, it's a mobile email client that looks like, behaves like, and has very similar characteristics to Apple Mail. So I'm going to take us through a handful of use cases and just give you a feel and an orientation around the capabilities of the application. And one thing that I wanted to point out for some of you who are technical in the audience is that what you're going to see on the world's biggest iPhone in front of you is actually happening on the device. There's no requirement for anything in the back end. There's no server infrastructure involved here. There's no transactions that are flowing from your mobile device to the cloud. And again, back to the earlier statement that I made, that's the direct result of one of our co-founders building the code for cancer image detection recognition. So I'm going to open up the Xero mobile email client, which you'll find on the bottom right-hand side of the screen. And immediately what you should be presented with is something that does look familiar. So you'll notice that I have a handful of emails there that have what we call global filing indicators. That represents that those emails have been filed directly into iManage or NetDocuments. The filing process is really the result of the individual's email filing behavior. So how we get these algorithms onto the device, Xero captures and consumes each individual's previous and historical email behavior and analyzes that. So where you've been filing emails into iManage or NetDocuments, it captures what we call haptics. We have an integration at an API level with document management systems, so where you've been filing those emails, who you've been interacting with, your contacts, so on and so forth. And what is the result of that is some very, very useful data, which is stored on the user's device. So I'm going to take you through a handful of use cases here. You'll notice at the bottom of the screen as well that I have an assistant feature, and that assistant feature allows users, again, to file emails en masse directly into the respective client matter workspaces. So let me pick on a handful of examples here. Let's pick on Kenna Rutherford at the very top of the screen. When I open up that email, you'll notice a few things happening on the screen. You'll notice that there's a file button on the right-hand side. You'll also notice a timer at the top right-hand side of that email as well. Now, what that timer is doing is it's capturing what I'm doing and how much time I'm spending interacting with this client-related email. Adjacent to that timer, you'll see a client matter that's also been predicted. Okay, so a few things that are going on the screen here are really interesting. We're removing the concept of manual rekeying or recollection of what you are doing with this particular email. So that timer is not just capturing the amount of time I'm spending interacting with this client-related email, but it's also going to capture the activity type. So if I'm simply reviewing this email, what you'll see in a few minutes is a narrative, a narrative that's part of a time record as part of the application. So let me go ahead and file this email. As I file it, I'm then presented with a handful of the attributes that are consistent with your document management system. So those are all predictions. I do certainly have the option to adjust what those attributes should look like in the event that those predictions are not accurate, but in this instance they are. You'll notice that I also have an auto-file conversation feature there, so if I tap on that, that'll allow me to automatically file that conversation, anything that gets sent to or received from that particular recipient. So I'm going to tap on File Email, I'm going to file this message, that email has been filed, and the user gets immediate confirmation as well. So that's one use case. There are many more, of course. Let me pick on a handful of additional examples here. If I do not want to tap on the email, like I've just demonstrated, what I can do as a user is simply swipe left to right. That then presents me with a handful of the predictions. I'm going to make the correct one here, which is JAG advertising. I'll then have the option again to file that email. Okay, so that's how we deal with filing emails on the fly individually. There is another advanced layer of functionality here, which is when I tap the assistant button at the bottom of the screen. When I tap that assistant feature, the user is then presented with another layer of advanced functionality. This now allows the user to file their emails directly into respective workspaces. So when I tap on batch filing, Xero is now analyzing the user's inbox. It's making predictions. It's collecting the data. And you can see that I now have 141 emails in my inbox, all of which I can file with the simple tap of a button. So that's really, I guess, the result of AI and machine learning at work. That particular example isn't always that relevant because there may be some emails here that I don't necessarily want to file as part of this batch filing workflow. So what I'm going to do is simply pick on a couple here. Let me pick on Samware. I'm going to swipe right to left. And the user is then presented with the option to change where that gets filed. And if I tap that, you're familiar with that screen by now. Or I have the option to tap on postpone. If I tap on postpone, that removes the email from the batch filing process and it'll reappear the following day. Or I have the option to tap on don't file. And when I tap on don't file, it'll remove that prediction from any future batch filing processes. The alternative to swiping right to left is swiping left to right. And when I swipe left to right, I'm able to file multiple emails en masse without having to, I guess, make these micro decisions about where these emails should and ought to get filed. Okay, so that's my signal for 0. Time left. So those are really some of the features that we've managed to put onto a mobile device. It's resulted in significant but incremental efficiency gains for users. You know, we can all connect to email. We can all, you know, I guess we all have scar tissue with the amount of email we consume and how we consume that email. We've also managed to port some of the technology that you've seen on mobile devices across to desktop. So there's some, you know, some good efficiency gains there. So I'm going to bow down and ask if there are any questions.
Questions for Ryan? I think you said that, I think you said that
I think you said that there was some connection between the billing systems too, where the AI could automatically bill time.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. So if I may, take 30 seconds, I'll show you what that looks like. So let me get out of this assistant feature. This time report is the result of how I've been interacting with those emails. So let me give you an example of what that raw data looks like. This is a bunch of transactions that Xero has captured automatically. You'll notice the level of detail we get our hands on. You've got the client matter, which has been already validated because of the integration we have with the document management system. The activity description is really an AI draft narrative that Xero has been capturing as a result of that timer that you saw on the top right-hand side, but importantly, how I've been interacting with that particular email. So whether I'm just reading it, reviewing and composing an email, or reading an attachment, Xero is able to capture that activity type automatically simply by the gestures of what you're doing on the screen of your mobile device. If I go a little bit to the right, you'll notice that the duration is also captured. So this is now contemporaneous, automated, passive time capture. This raw data typically then would land in something called your time entry system. So we have integrations with Intap, Belfield, Carpe Diem, Elite, Adderant, so on and so forth. So those transactions that you saw me interacting with a few minutes ago are now available to be viewed, edited, adjusted. Users can now assign phase task activity codes into these transactions, and then pick the ones you want to submit, add as a new time entry, go into those time entries, and edit the narrative, so on and so forth. So does that answer your question?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, sorry, this is a big mic. So, so I just saw you do a lot of processes, and then I saw you. I saw the timer, and then I saw a lot of things that looked algorithmic. I'm just wondering where the AI is.
It's on the device. We store the algorithms on the SQLite database of each user's device.
No, I'm asking you where the AI technically is. Could you just walk me through?
It is technically on the device. So this is what happens. User downloads the app. The app takes 5, 10,
A logistic
15.
regression model? Like, what's the AI? Like, tell me where the AI is.
The AI is on the device. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So there are about 45, 50 different parameters that we consume. Things like where have users been filing their emails? Who are their contacts? We build a social graph. There's a lot of I guess unsupervised learning that Xero is able to get its hands on, that then shapes a very personalized prioritization algorithm. So as an example, we didn't get through to the whole, through the whole demo, but we're building social graphs. So as an example, if I tap on the bottom left-hand side of my screen, and if I tap on by importance, my entire inbox will then recalibrate itself based on certain weightings that we've applied to certain parameters. So the reason Chris Padbert's at the top of my inbox is because I've interacted with Chris more than anyone else over the last 3 days. So it builds a dynamic social graph, it builds and it applies certain weightings to those parameters that are part of the application. So I can happily to go into more detail, offline if you'd like.
Ryan, I have one quick question.
Yeah.
Is there back-end analytics that I can get as the end user on my email productivity? In other words, am I going too fast?
Going too fast
on reading emails?
Should
I? Yeah. Can I kind of benchmark myself?
Yeah. So it's not a back-end thing. It actually, each user can get their own statistical data based on how many times you've opened up the app. So it's telemetrics basically. How many times you've opened up the application? How many emails have you filed? How many emails have been correctly predicted to be filed? How much time have you captured? How much time that's billable? So there's some really interesting user insights that are part of the application, and we're expanding that, category of data as well.
One last question.
Hi, so 2 questions. First, sorry, can you adjust the weightings as the end user? And also, do you work with containerized solutions?
So
like
the
BlackBerry
answer
work?
to your first question is, as an end user, no. There's some pretty hardcore, calculations that are just part of the application. If the firm has a view that they'd rather have different weightings assigned to different attributes by practice group, we can do that, but it's not really an end user driven thing. On the topic of containerization, the application typically is containerized through a mobile device management system. That's typically how it's managed or distributed. So we support most MDM applications.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tristan. Thanks, everyone.
All right, and on the home stretch, bringing it home for us, Will from Simply Agree.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. We're going to want some internet, I think. Thank you, Christian. Simply Agree is actually based out of Nashville, Tennessee, but been spending a lot of time with law firms in the area, and so I've gotten this. Yeah, great. Spent a lot of time here at the New York Legal Tech Meetup. Really excited to speak to this group and tell you a little bit more about Simply Agree. I'm actually going to use a little bit more of my time to talk about maybe anticipating some questions we might get about the process that transactional attorneys use to close their deals, and also kind of how that is different from what you might typically see with an e-signature tool today. Just to give you some context as to sort of where we fit in the transactional process, how we differ from e-signing tools, and why that's important to law firms. So just as a high-level overview, Simply Agree is a signature and closing management tool for transactional attorneys. So we're focused on how do we make closings more efficient, more predictable, and just simpler for all the parties involved. We're primarily working with firms that are doing mergers and acquisitions, private equity, commercial finance, commercial real estate sort of deals. And there are some particular problems that come around on these sorts of transactions around the closing. First of all, it's a very administrative process today. It's very time efficient. It's very inefficient. Can take anywhere between 10 to 30 hours on a lot of these transactions. Secondly, there are real legal and reputational consequences for how that closing goes. If you miss one signature, that might mean the deal can't close. If there's a deadline on that deal, it might mean it gets pushed and you can't close at all. And the third major issue that happens on these closings is attorneys are billing a great deal of time, but they're not actually realizing a lot of the time that they bill. In fact, at a legal tech conference last month, we spoke to a couple of law firms independently who had done analysis on the time that they'd been billing around closings before they adopted Simply Agree. And they actually told us they were spending, they were writing off between 40 to 50% of the time that they were billing around closing and post-closing work. It's a really long, inefficient process that lawyers are not getting paid for, so they're not happy about those inefficiencies and the money they can make from that. So this sounds like a formula where you would expect lawyers should be flocking towards legal technology, right? This seems like the perfect use case. Why aren't lawyers using e-signatures today? And we actually think the reason is because e-signature tools were basically built for this sort of environment. So how many people in the room have had a deal closing in the last year that looked like this? I don't see any hands. So when most e-signature tools came around in sort of the early to mid 2000s, the model that they were basing it off of was this type of a closing where everyone would gather around a boardroom table and synchronously sign all the documents they need to sign for the closing. By the time that email came around and became ubiquitous, clients really didn't want to be closing their deals at a boardroom table. They wanted to close their deals asynchronously, and they wanted to be able to actually collect all their signatures ahead of the deal documents being finalized. That means once the deal documents are finalized, you can actually close immediately rather than having to delay the closing days or weeks at a time. When clients started pushing on attorneys to solve this problem, how can we close our deals sooner and asynchronously collect all of our signatures, attorneys came up with actually what I think is a kind of ingenious solution, which is the signature packet. Basically just all of the signature pages that any particular signatory on that transaction needs to sign, pulling those signature pages out of your document and collecting all of those signature pages, holding the executed signatures in escrow until all the documents are finalized, and then attaching them back to each of the deal documents they correspond with. The big problem with this is it's really time intensive, right? So now you have attorneys that can't really use e-signatures because they're based off the idea that they need the final record of the deal, that they need to have the deal document that was set on the boardroom table, and we don't have those. But then secondly, we're spending all this time creating signature packets and then attaching them back to the documents they correspond with. So that's why we built Simply Agree. We automate the creation of signature packets, either for PDF or for e-signing, so we allow attorneys to do both. We maintain the status of those deal documents as you're collecting all the signatures from your signatories. And then we allow the deal documents to continue to be updated while you're collecting those signatures, and then can provide a process to be able to attach all the executed signatures back to the documents they correspond with in a really streamlined fashion. And then, of course, the final record of the deal is often the creation of a closing set or a closing binder. So I'll walk through that entire process just to show you how it works. But the basic idea is we want to reduce the time that attorneys are spending on hours that aren't getting paid for and allow them to move on to more substantive work that they are sure to be paid for. So with that, I'll jump into the demo. So when you log on to Simply Agree and you upload your documents, we're just going to walk you through a very quick process to identify which pages of those documents you need to have signed. And when you tell us which pages need to be signed, we're going to scan those documents to identify exactly which signatories we believe need to be signing each of those agreements. And we're actually going to show the signature pages directly next to the suggested assignments that we'd identified, because we always want this process to be transparent. There are legal consequences to who's going to be signing this document, so we want the attorney to have ultimate control of that and to be sure that all the people that need to sign are actually assigned to sign. And if they need to make any changes, I'm going to try to type with one hand, they can do that really easily on the fly and Simply Agree. So once we have uploaded our documents and assigned who needs to be signing each of those documents, we basically have a checklist right here for all the documents we're going to be collecting signatures on and each of the individuals and entities we're going to be collecting signatures from. It's really simple from this point now to start creating our signature packets. You can usually do this within a matter of minutes, often 10 to 15 minutes for a deal of this size, maybe 20 or 30 documents. I'm just going to identify who I want signing those documents. Do I want to be collecting PDF or e-signatures from those signers? I can add any e-sign tabs to make sure I indicate exactly where I need them to sign and what sorts of information I need to be collecting from them as part of the signing process. And then I can send that signature packet along with the underlying transaction documents, additional information, slip pages to correspond with all those deal documents, exactly what they're signing. And this is going to be sent directly to their email. They do not need to have a DocuSign account or Simply Agree account. They just click on their phone, on their computer, wherever they are. And what they're going to be signing is just the signatures if you want to be sending those as well. So once we have started collecting signatures, those signatures are going to show up on the attorney's dashboard so they can review exactly where the deal stands, create reports if there's a partner or a client that wants to see where we are. And then you can actually go through and make sure that every signature has been reviewed if you actually want to review every one, which I would expect in most deals you would. So if those deal signatures look correct, you can accept them. And what we're doing here is holding those signatures in escrow until you're ready to compile your fully executed agreements. As I mentioned, the attorney can continue updating their underlying agreements as those signatures are being collected. We can actually sync with your DMS system. So as new deal documents are uploaded to your DMS system, we can notify the attorney that they can update to a new version here and Simply Agree. But assuming you have your final version of your agreement, all the signatures you need to collect, you can go ahead and finalize them here. And then the last step in this process is typically creating a closing binder for the deal. We'll create a couple of different versions of that closing binder, either a single file PDF or a zip file directory that the attorney can download and send to their clients or send them a direct link. So here's what that closing binder would look like. with the law firm's kind of custom cover page, and then an index as the sort of attorney identified with all the documents all hyperlinked and bookmarked. So we've tried to really reduce the time that the attorney has spent post-closing, because that's the time that's least likely to get paid for. And with that, I'm out of time.
Questions for Will?
I'm just worried with these asynchronous documents flying around. What secure record do you have if somebody, after the agreement is closed, comes and says, that's not the version of the document that I signed?
Yeah. Yeah, so we would have a record in our system of which version was sent when the person actually executed the agreement. We have all of that back in our system. We use DocuSign if you're using e-signing to actually give the audit trail of when that person signed, their IP address, their geolocation. But then all that information would be in our system, and we would just create a report if somebody had a question about which version was being signed at any time. Most of the time, I would expect that it's the attorney sending signature pages to their clients. So there shouldn't be a ton of dispute in that situation over which version did I sign. The issue where that would be a little bit more touchy is if you're sending it to a third party, in which case you probably should be sending the final version of the agreement.
Did you say they're pre-signing before documents are done?
Yeah.
So that kind of relates to this question. Is there a way to confirm once it's finalized and then confirm all those signatures?
For the signers themselves?
Right.
Yeah. So we don't, the question was, is there a way to notify the signers of the final version of the document and to sort of let them know that this is what changed since you actually signed in Simply Agree? We don't have that, but that is a request we've gotten from some of the attorneys. Most of the time, that communication is happening offline via email, just saying, by the way, this was the final version of the documents. If, do I still have your permission to attach them, et cetera?
Can let me just, I want to close the loop on that because I'm curious. My question as relates to this, jurisdictionally,
yeah,
where does this work and what's the trend and how does that work? Because the U.S. lawyers and non-U.S. lawyers are going to have a different take on this.
Yeah. So I think it's a great question. U.S. attorneys are much more comfortable with sending counterparty signature packets totally separate from the documents. In certain cases, not even sending the documents with the signature packets. And that is very, very clearly enforceable in the U.S. today. In the U.K., there's the Mercury decision, which says for certain types of documents, you should be sending the full documents along with any signature pages that need to be signed, and particularly for e-signatures, that it actually has to be part of the same agreement. And so there are some formalities from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and that's part of the reason why we're going to give the attorney the ability to decide if PDF signatures are appropriate, if e-signatures are appropriate. If they want to send the full documents, we can still allow you to do those assignments, and then basically, have an export of all the documents a particular signer needs to sign. So we can still do part of the automation of how do we make sure that the person who needs to be signing has all the documents that they need and not every document on the deal.
Is this tool just for the attorney for one side, or is it sort of a collaborative tool for attorneys from multiple sides of the transaction to work together?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question is this a collaboration tool for both sides of the deal or all sides of the deal or just one party? It's interesting, when we first built it out, our assumption was attorneys would be really interested in being collaborative on a tool like this. It's now online. Why not work with your adverse counsel and third party to have one canonical source where everything sits? When we rolled that out to attorneys, they were very uncomfortable with inviting adverse counsel to work with them. So we tend to build it specifically for use within a law firm to do all the work that they need to do around the closing, and then they can export out of our tool to adverse counsel, whomever else they need. I think that we will eventually move in that direction, but that's not, in our experience, where the market is today. Yeah.
So all the closing documents exist on this platform, and does it extract the signature pages out?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually skipped over that. We do both. If you upload documents with signature pages, we will pull out those signature pages using the assignment process I showed you. We also have the ability, if you want to upload documents that have not yet had signature pages created, you can actually generate signature pages in Simply Agree as well. I just didn't get a chance to show that in the
That was my next question. So, okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Last questions? I think I saw a hand go from the back. No? Anyone?
Done once?
You got one in the back. Stay on.
Hi, I missed the beginning, so you may have covered it, sorry. So the attorney preferences, whether on a like per deal, per client, or per country basis, like can you actually template those workflows so that you can reuse them or share them or kind of lock down the process for a bigger team?
And so are you asking, like, for example, in a certain jurisdiction, I don't want my attorney sending e-signatures, for example? We don't do that today, but that is something that we're planning to do per organization moving forward, because we've got a few clients that we're going to be onboarding that said, we don't want to use e-signatures and we don't want our attorneys using e-signatures. So we do have that ability per organization. I'm sure we could probably figure out a way to do it per jurisdiction, but we've not done that yet.
One last quick question, Rob.
Yeah, so what does this add? Something that, like, so if I have a PDF and I'm using, and I have signature pages, how does this differ from being able to just say send for signature for using that tool?
So the primary difference would be if you wanted to pull out signature pages so that those documents could be signed, if they are continuing to change, our system would automate the process of being able to create those signature pages and get them back in, the signature back in, getting the signature pages back into your document. If you're sending out final agreements, DocuSign really can do the job with those agreements. So if you're doing a simple, license agreement and there are two parties and they're signing one document, Simply Agree is not necessarily, going to provide a lot of efficiencies there. If you're doing a large commercial real estate deal and you've got 20 documents and 30 signers, then that's where we can really provide a lot of efficiencies over the current process.
All right, thanks so much. All right, one last huge round of applause both for Winston, Strawn, and our 5 companies presenting tonight. Thank you guys so much. Thank you all so much for coming. I think they're going to kick us out, but maybe not for another like 20, 25 minutes if you want to grab a last drink or whatever the case may be. Thank you all so much for coming. Please stay tuned to the Meetup group and the newsletter if you guys haven't signed up on nylegaltech.com. We'll be in touch about the next event. Thank you guys so much for coming.